The term overrated gets chucked about quite a bit in media discussion. It gets used to describe a film that gets nominated for a certain amount of Oscars, perhaps a video game that gets called Game of the Year a few too many times, or just generally anything that's quite highly regarded in terms of its quality and or notoriety. And before we delve into the meat of today's video, I feel that it's pretty important to state that I don't think anyone is using the term overrated incorrectly. I simply take an issue with the way it's implemented into discussions surrounding movies, video games, music, and so on. And the way this word is used has pretty much been the bane of my existence, ever since I started making more critical types of videos on this channel. So I figured, hey, rather than mentioning why I have such a grudge against the way this term is used in every single Call to Hate video, I can instead just dedicate this video to explaining exactly why I do. So without further ado, let's dive into why calling things overrated is very overrated. Hello everyone, I'm That Other George, and today we're going to be talking about probably the most specific subject I'll ever talk about on this channel. But over here I do make some quite highly opinionated videos covering a vast array of different subjects relating to media that I either like or dislike. Obviously there would be some people that disagree with my perspective, so whenever I get a nice little paragraph from someone explaining why they disagree, I always take into account what they have to say, and 9.9 times out of 10 will leave a little response to it, just to spark some sort of discussion. So even if this conversation doesn't reach any major conclusion, it can at least be settled on a, yeah, let's just agree to disagree. It's much like efficiently mining in Minecraft. You might decide at one point, this isn't really going anywhere, but you can at the very least leave that mine feeling like some level of progress was made. When it comes to someone commenting that something is overrated and absolutely nothing else to support their argument, it very much feels like mining straight down into a pit of lava and just going, wow, what a waste of time that was. So what's the issue? Well, let's say you look at the tomato meter, the IMDb score, the Letterboxd score, the Metacritic score, what critics are saying, or what YouTube reviewers are saying on a certain film that's just released. And all of these sources are completely praising this certain piece of media, and then you go to see it in the theatre and feel extremely confused because the quality of the film didn't quite live up to your expectations. So calling the film overrated from your personal perspective can explain your experience at the time. But this will not work in discussions for many reasons, but the main one being that it's not a criticism of the media you experienced. It's a criticism of the reaction to the media you just experienced. If you strip away all of the hype, the media doesn't objectively become any better or any worse. Because the film, game, whatever it was, is still going to end up being the same product regardless of how the masses reacted to it. Arguing about whether or not something is overrated is the most pointless thing to me, because it's completely subjective as to whether or not a product lives up to your expectations. So how about instead of doing that and getting nowhere, you can instead, I don't know, just talk about the positives or negatives about whatever you're talking about? Like, as a lot of you know, I'm a huge fan of the Halo franchise. It's my favourite game series. And whilst I can agree with a lot of the criticism for the newer games, I would be genuinely curious to hear out some arguments for why, like, Halo Reach for example is bad, because obviously I feel the complete opposite way towards that position. But when you write an article called Top 10 Most Overrated Games, and apparently Halo is the most overrated game series of all time on the premise that you're a Sony fanboy, and then you list off some garbage takes without any supporting evidence. The only thing a fan like myself can take away from that is, wow, you didn't like it as much as I did and it's clearly not the game for you. What a big deal that is. And of course, if you get this level of argumentation from a professional gaming news outlet, then you can't expect anything from the YouTube comment section. And because my Joker video got pretty popular, it did also lead to some pretty terrible comments. So many people in the comments were being so whiny, not making any points against why they thought Joker wasn't a quality film. They just all started crying because people happened to like the film more than they did. But these two comments are my favourite. So apparently film is subjective, but you can also think Joker is overrated, which kind of goes against something being subjective if we're all meant to enjoy it from our own personal perspective. And apparently the most harmless of criticism is attacking. This comment complains about the fanboys and says it's overrated, both of which are obviously useless to throw against the film itself. But he ends off his comment by saying his review isn't bad, you just didn't like it, obviously referring to Ralph's review. But the thing is that you can easily claim that's what's happening to Joker here, because that film isn't bad, you just didn't like it, mostly because of the hype surrounding it. This hasn't got anything to do with the overrated part, but he finishes off by saying, maybe you just wanted to gain some traction. You mean to tell me that I uploaded a video to a public video sharing platform and wanted people to view it? Wow, what a mind-blowing concept that is. So, what about the inverse? The term underrated, of course, gets used to describe a piece of media that doesn't quite get the attention it deserves. And there are quite a lot of things that I would throw into this category, be it Rango, the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, Super, or The World's End. So when I feel like a piece of media is lacking in certain discussion, I quite like to make a little review just to draw some attention back to it. So if you're absolutely adamant that something is not worth the time or appreciation, then do the opposite of that and just don't give it any attention. If it bothers you that much that something has a huge fan base, but you're not as keen on it, then try your best to ignore it. Or just go complain about it on Reddit and feed into the cycle so I can make fun of your comments in the Call to Hate series. Thanks. Do you want to know what's pretty underrated? Wink wink, nudge nudge. My Letterboxd account, because I'm close to 300 followers and you should totally follow me, or make an account and follow me. Feel free to tell me that Fight Club is overrated. You met me at a very overrated time in my life.